okay, if they have that much power, then why are they having trouble catching like certain variants, you know? Like if people are able to use Infinity Stones as what they say, like paperweights.
The thing with the Infinity Stones is the reason that they don't work is because it's in a separate reality. So they don't work at all. It's not like they have that power. It's just that they don't
when
work.
was that established as a rule? Because
it's a comic book thing, I think. So when you move
technically
Infinity Stones, I'm assuming that this is the reason why, is when you move Infinity Stones out of the established reality, they no longer work.
It's the same reason why he can't use his powers, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. That's interesting.
I mean, that's not something that was clearly stated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's based on like comic book stuff, so maybe it's different in the movies. Maybe they'll explain it, and
I hope so, because
like
the Infinity Stones don't work in that reality, in the sense that the Timekeeper's place is in a different reality, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
But then why don't they just bring it to where the variant is and then use it, is my question. Because in that case, they would be back on the regular universe, right?
Well, I think you probably could end up creating a bunch of different branch realities, because you'll be introducing another stone into this reality that already has that stone.
Yeah, but you just got to bring it back exactly how the Avengers did it.
They're probably like, it's too complicated.
Just
don't
you just want to catch the variant.
Stuff.
That's all you want to do, is just catch the variant and then get out of there. Or you can reset it, like how they did with the universe that we saw in the beginning. Like,
we'll see.
It seems so simple. I mean, these are just questions. I'm not like complaining. I'm just like wondering how they're gonna resolve these questions, you know? Because when you involve time in your plot, there's bound to be like a lot of things you have to do.
There's got to be repercussions, and hopefully they cover that. That's something that is in the back of my mind, because whenever you deal with timey-wimey stuff, it's like, okay, like how is this timeline existing right now? Like what are they gonna do to fix this?
And it's interesting. I don't know if we want to keep on going on the time discussion, but this episode kind of shines a light on a lot of the time stuff that we saw in Endgame, and the questions specifically around like Steve Rogers going back in time, and like what him staying back in time. Like, he clearly didn't create a branch reality that he lives in with Peggy. That must mean that they stated that everything that the Avengers did was supposed to happen. So that means that there was always two Steve Rogers. I guess that's what that means. That there was always two Steve Rogers. There was a Steve Rogers that was like in the background growing old, and then there was the one that's in the ice that gets brought back.
That doesn't necessarily make sense, because one would have had to have started first, right? Like you can't have like one without the other. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
What do you mean one would have started first?
What if it's a time loop?
It is a time loop.
Like,
well, not a loop, but like it's a time roller coaster.
Basically, it's like because Steve, I guess this goes back to how Tenet works, but it's because Steve was always going to have some motivation to go back to the time. It's going to, what's it called? Because he has that attention. Yeah.
It's already stated in the MCU itself that Back to the Future thing is not right at all.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I mean, there's a thing.
Why don't you believe it? Literally,
there's a difference between what they're showing us and what they're telling us.
No, but the Ancient One literally talked about the branch universes and whatnot. Like that's
she talked about that in regards to the Infinity Stones.
The multiverse is guaranteed how the thing works. Even in this episode of Loki, they explained it in that sense. It's not. There's no loop. Dude, there's no
no. Okay, so there has to be, because there's one timeline. There's one timeline, right? There's only one.
No, there's
Do we
multiple.
agree on that?
There's multiple.
No, there's not. There can't be, because
there is.
The Time Lords have to make sure that there's only one.
I remember the Ancient One talking about what you're saying, Scott.
It's called what do they call it? They called it
They called it the sacred timeline.
Yeah,
but
it's
that
the sacred timeline.
That doesn't mean that there aren't other ones. It means that they're
think that was
trying to
implied.
eliminate the other ones.
I think that was implied though, because they talked about how the multiverse is bad. So when the multiverse happened a long time ago, the Time Lords had to come in and create one timeline. And then now, at any time that there's a multiverse potential event, a Nexus event, they have to stop it. And that's what they have to do to create a single timeline.
But how about the variant of Loki then? Are you saying that variant isn't
was
in a
creating
different
a
timeline?
multiple timeline.
Exactly.
No,
So there are multiple timelines.
Yeah, but they stop it each time. That's their job. Is to stop it each time.
They try to stop it, but it doesn't mean that there can't be multiple timelines.
So are you saying that Steve Rogers is a variant?
Is a variant. Maybe.
Yes.
He can't be. He's not.
They could explain it in the Loki series.
Maybe they'll explain it, but the way that they set it up now, they said everything that the Avengers did was supposed to happen.
No, but
because Loki brought that up. He brought that up. He was like, the Avengers went back in time.
I agree with what you're saying. I'm saying that just because that there's one sacred timeline doesn't mean there can't be other timelines.
There are other timelines. It's just the problem with other timelines is that they're bad, so they have to be stopped.
So this implies that maybe Steve's variant is bad.
That's what your theory would create. It would
but
create
your
a
theory
version
is the
where,
time roller coaster. They didn't.
Yeah, I'm saying he goes back and he's basically meant to be in the sacred timeline the whole time.
No, but that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense because one, Peggy, if Peggy did marry someone else, in that thing, that doesn't make sense, right? Because in that sacred timeline, Peggy married someone else and had a children.
That was Steve.
Okay.
That was Steve.
What if it wasn't Steve?
That was
Wait,
not
but
Steve.
Okay,
That was Steve.
Because then she had a daughter. That's not Steve's daughter.
It's
No,
not.
No, Agent Carter.
It's guaranteed not Steve that she married.
Agent Sharon. She's her niece. So it's not. It's not.
Are you sure?
Yeah. That's her niece.
Yeah, but they literally stated a different person's name, and they also when Peggy was still alive. When Peggy was still,
I don't think they stated somebody else's name.
I think they at least stated it wasn't Steve, and then afterwards, when she was older and she recognized Steve, she was like, "Oh, you're back out of the ice," blah blah blah, and so there's no way in my head like that she would say that if in the sacred timeline. No,
you're talking about a person who's suffering from Alzheimer's.
No, she literally
you can't use her
that makes
words
no sense, dude.
to establish the laws of time in the MCU.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
There is the possibility that she could be lying and that maybe Steve
or just forgot,
or Steve was
How
undergoing
could she
medical.
forget someone she marries and then lives the rest of her life with?
What
It's called
did they say
Alzheimer's.
they get
That's
married
true.
at
It's
the
called
end of
Alzheimer's.
Endgame?
Okay, I don't know anything about Alzheimer's, but I'm pretty sure you remember the person you marry and live with for like the rest of your life.
No,
Wait,
no.
really? Yeah, you could.
Really?
You won't.
Scott. OC might have won this one because of the Alzheimer's comment.
But even then, like,
Okay, wait, hold on. But in her case, she even remembered Steve's name, so she at least remembered him a bit, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So if she can remember him a bit, why not the part where they get married and live happily ever after?
I mean,
There's no way. There's just no way in my head that works out because even logically speaking, right? There needs to be a timeline where that doesn't happen because they have to go back for that to happen. So there's at least a timeline that exists where she does not like marry or like see Steve after he goes frozen. That's just logically how it is.
That's fair.
What do you mean why? What do you mean why?
But why does there have to be? Why can't it have been that like Steve goes into the ice and then a couple of years later he comes back and that's the Steve that we get at the end of Endgame? But then
No, because
he
that
just
doesn't make
stays
sense.
secret.
Because there needs to be a timeline, the first ever timeline, where they haven't gone back in time yet.
But not if there's a loop. If there's a loop, then there's no timeline where that didn't happen.
That doesn't make any logical sense.
You're talking about time though. Like time, it's if you're talking about a
no, but
time loop.
you fall into the time paradox then, which is exactly what they said in the MCU. You can't have that. That's you guys are talking about the Back to the Future version of the time, which is not how time works. You literally cannot have that. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, yeah, the MCU did establish that.
As far as
the MCU established
I'm still
that.
saying that what they're showing us is different from what they told us. They said that like the whole Back to the Future thing isn't real. I don't know if
I don't think the ancient one with the time stone would have mistaken that. Okay.
No, the ancient one didn't say the Back to the Future thing. That was something that
I know, but
said.
she went with the multiversal theory. So
which I agree with, and that's the thing that I'm talking about.
So you cannot have a time loop.
But that's the reason why you can't have a multiverse.
No,
that's
you
the reason why you can't have a branch.
She said there wasn't.
I mean, yeah, but that's a bad thing. Is the whole point? It's like everything is supposed to make sure that there's only the sacred timeline, and so they wouldn't allow.
That's what they're trying to do. Like I said
they
earlier.
Can't. Yeah, they can't oust every timeline.
Yeah.
But then okay, and
there's
then
still other timelines.
A secondary point. In addition to what I've stated before, if there was a separate timeline, there would be no old Steve at the end of Endgame. You get what I'm saying?
Wait, sorry. Can you say that one more time?
If there was a separate timeline that was completely separate from the timeline of Endgame, the sacred timeline, how would old Steve end up in the sacred timeline at the end of Endgame?
That is a great question. We will have to figure that out.
Exactly. It's all because it's one timeline.
No,
it's all one timeline.
No. I think the creators literally said that Steve, the old Steve was not from, did not come back through like aging. He came back from a different timeline, like a different.
No, okay.
I think I remember that.
The creators have said contradictory things though. They've said multiple things. Like the Russo brothers and Kevin Feige have both said things that are contrary to each other. And so part of me thinks that like they're kind of making this up as they go along. But then also I think that there's a way that they can make it make sense. And so that's what I'm like thinking, and that's what I think is going to be fleshed out.
Well, if our sources have no credibility, then I think we have to maybe close the book on this and open it up another day.
No,
y'all.
I'm sorry, OC, but like all the evidence from the movies state that cannot happen, because they literally said, okay, if we go to a different timeline and kill Thanos when he's a baby or whatever, that only that timeline would get saved, not the one they exist in. Therefore, like the one that they exist in, old Steve did not grow up in that one. It just doesn't make sense logically.
That would have to mean that wasn't part of the sacred timeline's rules. Like that was something that wasn't supposed to happen.
Okay.
Right? Like, and so that would create a variant timeline. But I
mean, okay, let us know what you guys think in the comments.
Let us know what you thought of the first episode in the comments.
We are the variants. We need to be vanquished. All right, later.
Alrighty, later. See you.